Sweeties, how are you doing? Thank you all so much for all the love and support. I am grateful, and please do not forget to subscribe and smash the like button. So today we'll be talking something very important, and it's about a video that I saw about white Jews and black Jews, and that really got my attention. And I was like, I really do want to learn about this. And he was like, the white Jews that we see today do not have bloodline connection with the Bible, with the Jews in biblical period. So he went further to say that they were converted, and Judaism in Europe and Russia, that they were all converted and they do not have connection with the with Israel and all that, you know. So that really, like, you know, I do not know a lot about this, but then I'll leave it to you all to, like, you know, educate me on this. I don't know it all. And then this video is in segment talking about how the Westerners, anywhere they go into, that they colonize and all that, all they do is they try as much as they can to make people's lives very hard and difficult. Let's get into this video.
You have to remember one thing I think is very important, that the white Jews that we see today have no bloodline connection with the Jews of the biblical period. They were converted to Judaism in Europe and in Russia. They were converted and have no bloodline connection with the black Jews who make up the biblical Israel that the Bible writes about and of which Jesus was a part.
Well, what happened to the black Jews?
The black Jews are still in existence. They're black Jews in America. They're black Jews all over Africa. They're black Jews in Palestine. They're black Jews everywhere. Diane's daughter complained not more than 2 years ago that black Jews had moved on either side of her house, and therefore her property had depreciated in Palestine. Black Jews had depreciated her property. Jews had moved directly from Palestine to India, and the community celebrated its 1900th anniversary or something, and they had white Jews who had emigrated from Europe and black Jews who had originally come from Jerusalem at the fall of Jerusalem, had an uninterrupted straight line of connection from the fall of Jerusalem to India. All over the world there are black Jews, but the Zionist Jews who had been converted to Judaism have taken over the control of the definition of what Judaism is, as white people do with anything. If they come into it, they take it over and define what it is, as you stated in your introductory statement. So we have to remember that white Jews, when you see them on the street, are not the Jews of the biblical period. And that sometimes confuses black people who ought to be black Christian nationalists.
See, one of the things I'm hearing,
they couldn't even decide whether they wanted the Holy Land or somewhere else. You know, they had the Uganda plan, they had other things. And Theodor Herzl, who was the masterminds behind Zionism, he said, no, listen, guys, we want the Holy Land because, remember, this is like identity theft. He didn't use these words. I'm paraphrasing, of course. He said, for marketing purposes, we need to get the Jews to identify with our movement. So we're going to use Jewish symbols, phrases that are familiar, concepts that are precious, and we're just going to twist them a bit. Kind of.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, that on this specific topic, you refer to one of the Zionists in your book who actually recommended the land of Palestine over other lands for the reason that Jews could change their socioeconomic status there. You say, for example, Jews who immigrated to America tended to remain in the same types of jobs that they had in Europe. Jews in Russia were not involved in farming or agriculture, for example. If the Jews would collectively move to Palestine, they could develop it into a comprehensive social and economic community where Jews could normalize not only their lifestyles, but also their occupations. So there was this notion that it was also not only for religious reasons, but there was this idea that Palestine would make sense from an economic perspective.
It wasn't for religious reasons at all. They wanted the Jews to get together and start a new economy wherever it was. You know, Herzl wanted, actually the Orthodox Jews, there was a small amount of Orthodox Jews, very misguided, who thought mistakenly that they could kind of exploit the Zionists, that the Zionists will help find a place where the Jews can go where there won't be any anti-Semitism, and as far as ideology and Jewish identity, the rabbis will take care of that. The Zionists presented themselves to many Jews as simply wanting a practical solution to anti-Semitism. That was propaganda. And the rabbis actually said, we don't need the Holy Land, let's take Uganda, because Rabbi Reines was their leader, that was his name. He said, because if we're just looking for a safe place, why do we have to have the Holy Land? And Herzl, who was anti-religious, he didn't like religious Jews. He said, no, we need the Holy Land because marketing purposes. We want the Jews to feel a sense of being Jewish, but not as a religion, as a nationality. We want them to have a sense of this is a familiar place, the place they've always longed for, but not as a messianic renewal of the world, as a national homeland. You see, artificial Jewish flavoring and artificial Jewish coloring, that's what they did. So it's like taking, I don't know, an apricot-flavored Jelly Belly and trying to get nutrition from it and serving it to these people that eat apricots and say, look, we got this new apricot for you. It was bait. It was a generations and generations of, it was brainwashing. Now, but here's the thing, Israel, in order for the problem in Israel to be solved, Israel has to change its identity. The problem is you cannot have a Jewish country, Jewish state the way they define a Jewish state, and also be a democracy. And if they want to retain it as a Jewish state, that's the cause of the problem. So the problem is that Israel calls itself the Jewish state. Israel is different than all other countries in the world. All other countries in the world are the countries of their citizens. Even, the 1967 war, there are Jews that say it was worth it because we got the wall. The wall is holy, yes, fine. But human beings are much more holy than a wall. They sacrificed men, women, and children, their own people even, for a wall? What are you, crazy? The entire Zionist ideology from beginning to end is so antithetical to Judaism, and this is why the Zionists made Zionism, because they knew that Jews didn't like wars. We would rather run than fight, and that drove the Zionists crazy. Where's the Jewish art? Where's the Jewish architecture? Where's the Jewish sports? Where's the Jewish strongmen? And most of all, where are the Jewish warriors? Our attitude was, go do it, become them if that's what you want. But they did not succeed because of the pogroms. So they said, we're going to change all of you, all of us. We're going to steal your identity. We're going to tell the world, our wars are your wars. Our country is your country. We are the state of the Jews. Our wars are the wars of the Jews. We're fighting for you. Our prime minister is the prime minister of the Jews. And that is why Zionism is so antithetical, so the opposite of Judaism. And
the notion about Jews never having military heroes, you wrote about that in your book, and it really touched me. You said they never had military heroes. We only looked up to righteous people, never to the warrior, the athlete, or the artist. It would be unthinkable for the Jews to have the scene of a military battle become a national attraction. Meanwhile, compare that to what Israel is.
Oh my God.
Everybody has to serve in the military. Everyone.
That's right.
It's a state of soldiers.
And that's why Ben-Gurion called the military the melting pot. This is precisely why they insist on drafting all ultra-Orthodox Jews. And now you know why we refuse to go. They will refuse to serve their country. Oh no, the purpose of Israel's army is not merely to be a military. The purpose of Israel's army is to be a melting pot. It's a church of Zionism. You know that they teach about Judaism and Jewish identity in the army? It's ridiculous. The army is their church of Zionism. And by the way, if you ever argue with any Zionists, this idea that Zionism is the only country in the world that doesn't represent its citizens, they have no answer. Entire Zionist history, culture, Jewish identity is all contrived. It's synthetic, it's artificial. People sat down, and they still do today. There are think tanks, JPPI and various others like that. And they think, how could we further advance Zionism? How could we change the story? How could we better the story? How could we progress? How could we get more followers? And all of these guys, these names aren't really natural, organic names of their families. They changed it. And Ben-Gurion made a rule that over a certain level of employment or in the army, an officer or employee, you have to change your name. Everything, the whole history is a fake. Their identity is a fake. And it's my identity that they stole. This is it, Zionism is anti-Semitic. Zionism is anti-Jewish. And the solution, we have to get rid of Zionism.
The only reason that white people in the United States or anywhere we are, in Europe, in Africa, in Australia, in Israel, wherever we are the colonizers. We are the colonizers. And we live off the expense of the assault, Europe's assault on Africa, the kidnapping of African human beings, the trafficking, all of these things that we hear today. This is where it came from. Hundreds of years of assaulting and stealing everything that African people and Africa as a continent had and putting it into the hands of white people. And so this is why, as the chairman has said, the true class struggle, the true working class in the world is the African and colonized working class, not white people, because all white people, and this is true. You and I know this is true by just living our lives and seeing it. All white people sit on the pedestal, on the backs of African and indigenous people. And, the statistics are that even poor white people have an easier ability in a crisis to raise $3,000 in an emergency than middle-class African people do. Because we live in social wealth. We live with the wealth surround. The only reason.
And when it comes to this video, Madeline turned him every which way but loose. Let's see.
I made a video talking about how, as an American, if I want to be on the right side of history, 99% of the time, the easiest way to do this is just to not agree with anything the United States government is telling me. If the United States tells me a country's my enemy, it's probably not. If the United States tells me somebody's my ally, they're probably up to no good. This is the simplest shortcut to having a pretty good opinion about foreign policy that you, as an American, can take if you don't have time to research things. Fortunately, I do have time to research things. And that is why when this person said, if you don't like it here, you should try going to North Korea, Iran, or Afghanistan, I had to laugh. These are hilarious examples of other countries to choose, and I will explain why. First of all, North Korea, I as an American am not allowed to visit. I think I spent a lot of my childhood assuming this was because North Korea didn't want people going there and seeing what was going on. Actually, people from other countries can and do visit North Korea, but you know who's not allowed to visit North Korea? Americans. And it's not because North Korea won't allow us, but our own government will not allow us. Instead, they're content to make sure anything we think we know about the region comes from one source, primarily Radio Free Asia, a fake news source started by the CIA with the expressed goal of being anti-communist propaganda. Any weird story you've heard about North Korea, like that everybody there has to get the same haircuts? Yeah, that probably came from Radio Free Asia, which to this day is funded entirely by the United States government. So, babe, I cannot go to North Korea because the United States will not allow me. Because they do not want Americans to see the disconnect between the propaganda machine that they have created, telling you things about North Korea, and what actually happens in North Korea. The second example, Iran, is somehow even more perplexing for you to bring up. Because if you know anything, you know that the democratically elected prime minister of Iran was overthrown in a violent coup by the U.S. government. Why? Because he was going to nationalize the oil fields in American business. So instead, we overthrew him and installed a right-wing dictatorship that was sympathetic to American interests. A puppet government, if you will, that so violated and infuriated the Iranian people that they overthrew our puppet government, dispelled all of the Americans, and put in instead a reactionary government whose main goal was to oppose U.S. intervention in any capacity. everything you don't like about Iran, babe, you don't like because the United States government did it. That's right. My country, the United States, destabilized all of Iran for decades, dismantling their democracy because their democratic voting process led to a result that was not favorable to us. Not exactly the most ethical course of action, if you ask me. And last, Afghanistan. I can only assume you must be extremely young to include Afghanistan on this list, because if you have been alive for nearly as long as I have, I am 37 years old, the United States efforts in your lifetime to destabilize Afghanistan. The CIA was so heavily involved in Afghanistan, funding and training covert terrorist organizations there to fight against communism in the region, that we actually kind of created a big problem for ourselves. What was it? Say it with me. The Taliban and Osama bin Laden. Yes, all of that came from CIA funding in Afghanistan. Then our government proceeded to bomb the shit out of Afghanistan in the wars that followed 9/11. We didn't like what we had created, I guess, displacing nearly 6 million people in Afghanistan. So everything you don't like about Afghanistan right now, yeah, that's directly the result also of the United States. This is what I mean when I say, if you want to know what opinion you should take about foreign policy as an American to be on the right side of history, USA bad is the opinion that will get you to the right place 99% of the time.
Moral of the story, we not welcome over there.
So this is all I got from this video, and I really don't know how I saw this, but I was like, I am bringing this here so we all can talk about it and learn more. And actually, where I found so interesting is that I love the fact that some of them already knew and speaking the truth, because knowing something is different and trying to speak about it and telling the truth is another thing. That anywhere they go, they are always causing problem, and anywhere they enter, they try to colonize. They are still colonizers to this very moment. Excuse me. And that also boiled down to, there is a video one palm-colored man made saying that Europeans are not the ones destabilizing Africa. The Africans' resources are still in their country, or still with them. That it is their leaders, which I also agree that it is their leaders, but saying that they are not the ones doing anything is like telling me that everything going on in the whole, like, some places in the world right now, that they are not part of the reason why all these things are happening. Like the way Congo is being invaded by the Westerners, and you are telling me the Europeans are not the cause of it. Like, who are the cause of it? Excuse me. So the struggle is real, and most of the countries that are having problems or that are going through crisis, are, if you look into it, you will find out that the Westerners are part of the problem. And then Sudan, Congo, Palestine, and some other countries, right? When you look into it, you see that the Westerners are the ones supporting, fueling what is going on. And then you want to tell me that you people are not the cause of the problem. You people are the major problem, because in as much as some countries already had their independence, yet you people still did not leave them alone. You all still come in one way or the other to steal something from them. And then it happens that most of them are working with the leaders, because if you are not working with the leader, the leaders are not for the Westerners, I mean, a lot of things are going to go wrong. There is which country, I can't remember the country, maybe Uganda or one other country like that, that because they refuse to legalize LGBTQ, I mean, the US already, like, does not want to cut ties with them, does not want to do business with them, doesn't want to do this with them, and all that, and they also stop sending funds to the country. So most times some leaders are also scared because they do not want to get sanctioned. But then, if you really want to be a leader, these are the things you have to look into. You have to, have the interest of your own people at heart before going into it. not being for the Westerners, because being for the Westerners is as good as you being against your own people. Yeah. So I hope that someday, one day, we all will wake up, especially the leaders, and know, sorry about that, and know that your problems are majorly the Westerners who come into your countries to kill and to steal. And then, I mean, there are so many things I really want to use as an example. It's just like, I think yesterday that I found out that about how many constituencies in Kenya, is it Kenya? It's either Kenya or Uganda, that it has been sold to the Chinese. I really don't know what I just read through, close it back, because these leaders are just like, you know, doing the worst. And then the Westerners being the major reason why all this are happening, not until we are ready. And then I also would want you all to clarify me about the black Jewish and the white Jewish. I mean, the original Jews. Let me educate me more on that. I absolutely want to learn. I want to hear. Thank you all so much. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.